This is an emergency educational broadcast from the local station. Stay calm, stay informed, stay human.
Good evening, or whatever time it is where you are. This is Psychology of Survival, Understanding the Human Mind in the Apocalypse. If you are hearing this, you've managed to hold on to your shelter, your sanity, or perhaps just your radio. Tonight, I don't want to talk about the end of the world. I want to talk about something that keeps us alive long after food and shelter. The human mind. Fear, morality, hope, survival. Even when everything else is falling apart, they don't just disappear. They only get louder. But what truly happens to our psychology when civilization collapses and the line between human and monster fades?
Part 1. Fear and Survival Instincts.
When danger strikes, the first response is not logic. It's instinct. According to Walter Cannon's research on the fight-or-flight response, our bodies trigger an automatic survival mechanism. Adrenaline surges, pupils dilate, and breathing quickens. It's evolution's gift to help us act before we think. In a zombie outbreak, or any disaster really, fear becomes both a weapon and a trap. Fear sharpens the senses, but it also narrows them. People freeze, flee, or fight, often without realizing which one they have chosen. As psychologist Paul Ekman explained, emotions are not irrational. They are information. Fear, for instance, tells us something matters. It is proof that life still holds meaning, even in chaos. But excessive fear becomes contagious. Sociologists call this collective behavior, when individuals imitate the panic of others. Crowds don't always spread courage. They can also spread hysteria. And this is why leadership matters. As studies in social psychology show, particularly Albert Bandura's work on social learning theory, we tend to copy the behavior we observe. If leaders stay calm, others will follow. But if leaders lose control, chaos multiplies. In survival, psychology becomes something transmittable, and in a way, that can make it the most dangerous infection of all. If we think about it, it's strange and at the same time interesting to think how quickly our modern systems collapsed. How the same networks that once connected us suddenly became silent. In retrospect, it wasn't just the virus that spread, but also misinformation, panic, and distrust. Sociologist Ulrich Beck once described our world as a risk society, a civilization that produces its own dangers through progress itself. The very technologies that promised safety, like communication and medicine, also accelerated collapse when uncertainty became too great. And in the end, the apocalypse wasn't that sudden. It was actually something systematic. Each failure, either political, economic or psychological, merged into one unstoppable chain reaction.
Part 2. Trauma, grief, and coping mechanisms.
Fear gets you through the first night, but trauma, that's on a different level, and it stays with you even when the screaming stops. Sigmund Freud first described defense mechanisms as unconscious ways the mind shields itself from unbearable reality. Denial, displacement, and repression. Those invisible strategies keep us functioning when logic would make us collapse. In these ruins we live in today, denial can be a survival strategy. Pretending that the world is not lost may be the only way some people get out of bed every day. But as time goes by, the mind searches for meaning. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, in her model of grief, described 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Out here, we see them all, and sometimes in a single day. Someone refuses to believe the infected were ever human. Another one argues that there must be a cure. And another one is just silent for days. Finally, we have acceptance. And acceptance isn't giving up. It's actually adapting. As the American Psychological Association reminds us, resilience isn't the absence of suffering. It's the ability to recover with purpose. Apologies. We had some interference, but we are back online. So as I was saying, group behavior changes under pressure too. In sociology, we call this social cohesion, the degree to which members of a group stay united. Shared danger intensifies bonds, but it can also create in-groups and out-groups. Basically, those we protect and those we abandon. The moment we label someone as other, empathy begins to crumble. That's the psychological beginning of dehumanization. And when we stop seeing people as human, we are no longer different from the monsters we fear.
Part 3. Ethics and the meaning of humanity.
There's a point in every catastrophe when survival turns from a biological act into a moral test. What do we owe others when helping them might kill us? Well, psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg proposed that moral reasoning develops in stages, from obedience to universal principles. In ordinary life, morality is abstract, but here it is concrete. Food for one or food for many. Save a friend or save yourself. Emily Durkheim once said that morality binds individuals into a society. But when society collapses, does morality collapse with it? Or is morality what proves that society can still exist even without laws or governments? Some argue that ethics are luxuries, that in a zombie apocalypse there are no rules, only survival. Yet, psychological studies of altruism, such as those by Daniel Batson, show that empathy can exist even in extreme circumstances. Humans are wired for connection. We survive better together than alone. Still, of course, empathy has its limits. Repeated exposure to violence can cause compassion fatigue, a phenomenon well documented among trauma workers. Eventually, even good people stop feeling, but not because they are cruel, but because the brain must protect itself from pain and suffering. That's when ethics become fragile. When you start seeing others not as people, but as risks. When you justify every act, good or bad, as necessary. That's how humanity fades, not in one violent act, but in 1,000 small decisions we could be making every day.
Part 4. Hope, Memory, and Identity.
Psychology itself doesn't end with suffering. It actually studies recovery. Even in disasters, humans seek meaning. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote that those who found purpose, even in suffering, were more likely to survive. He called it logotherapy, the search for meaning as a form of survival. In this world, meaning might be very small. It could be protecting someone, remembering a song, or recording a broadcast. But those small acts are resistance against despair. Identity also shifts in disaster. People rediscover roles. They become caretakers or leaders or healers. And that transformation shows one of the most important psychological truths. We are never just victims of their circumstances. We are authors of adaptation. To keep feeling like ourselves, some of us still write, some of us still teach, and some of us still believe that speaking about the mind helps keep it alive.
Part 5. The Thin Line of Humanity.
If psychology teaches us anything, it's that humans are both fragile and extraordinary. Our instincts protect us. Our emotions define us. Our ethics remind us who we were and who we want to be. Every act of empathy, every small kindness, every refusal to dehumanize, those are the quiet and small revolutions that keep civilization breathing. In this apocalypse, or any catastrophe, our greatest enemy isn't the Walking Dead. It's actually forgetting what it means to be alive and to be part of the human race. To those still listening, remember that fear is natural, grief is inevitable, but cruelty is a choice. And as long as choice exists, so does humanity. This has been Psychology of Survival, Understanding the Human Mind in the Apocalypse. And remember, stay calm, stay aware, and above all, don't trust anyone, not even your own mind. This message has been brought to you by the last remaining local broadcast unit. Stay vigilant, stay informed, stay human. Transmission ending. For now.